This conference will now be recorded.
Sorry.
Start over.
I didn't see a red.
Great.
How's everybody doing today?
Good, good.
Thank
How you doing?
We actually provided our account report here, but I did want to share with you that I know that each of you are familiar with this. We continue to have major challenges from a data integrity perspective when it pertains to Tyler. We're auditing our headcount on a monthly basis. We're comparing it to the payroll cycle payout. And so the difference of what we're doing now is instead of doing an actual calendar month review, we are doing a date review of the previous month. And in this situation, we're looking at a June 28th through a July 11th date. Again, that coincides with our last payroll. And what we wanted to provide you and show you a sense of the information on here, what we're looking at is comparing to the total payout to the individuals that received a check from us that payroll cycle, okay? And you'll see as a summary, here you'll see that last month we had, for the month of June, the city hired 12 new employees. We had 11 promotions and 13 exits. Our turnover rate for the month of July is 1.4%. And for the year, we're still tracking at about 11.4%. Our vacancy rate continues to be at about 7.5%. And of the total, we align our review to a headcount of 659. Out of that 659, we have a total of 61 temp or part-time employees. We have 11 elected officials, as judge falls into administrative, so that would be 12, but we have 11. And then we have a total of full-time salaried employees of 587 employees, which again, within the time frame of 6/28 through 7/11 last payroll, that is a total of 659 total employees on payroll. Okay. And so what I printed out for you there was a handout of the request that was made last time to provide an all-employee report, which was provided here in your handout. There's a turnover report that is listed in there. There's a monthly personnel change report that shows all hires, all exits, and all transfers or promotions. So that's also listed in the report as well. And then the last one is the vacancy report. So those are the reports that were requested out of last night's meeting. So stand for questions.
I think this is more in line with what, how many employees we had, increase in employees one budget year to the next. When you have 587 total employees, we don't really have that much of an increase. I think we have 560 something, if I recall, 10 years ago, and then we're 587 on full-time FTE.
Right.
So, and the temps will drop off as they drop off.
Yes.
Yeah, they're seasonal temps. So I think now this is an accurate count. And I believe that we're probably not far from being in line with the growth of gross receipts versus the growth of employees.
Mr. Chair, if I could just brag on and her team. As she mentioned, she's been auditing. We've had some communication issues, which we've got to have human resources, payroll, accounting, all working together on this Tyler system. I think, of course, we all know and understand that Tyler had some system setups in its original setup, and then going back and auditing those numbers every month to make sure apples to apples, so we can get you some valid data. And so we commend Molly and her team. And of course, you've recently seen some training agendas and full-blown training strategy and plan for the city, which the city hasn't had in years. Both of those are pretty heavy lifts, and they've done a great job with this. We just thank her.
Thank you. Any comments from anyone?
Yeah, Chairman, if
Please.
an organization, thank you, this is nice. I mean, something I've been dying to see,
Yes,
and it just it spells everything out. So thank you so much.
absolutely. And by the way, I knew that that was a request that was also made as last of the finance committee. And we're actually working with Kyla right now to be able to print out a org chart through Tyler based on the data that's in there. Now, keep in mind that it's critical that the data, is correct and accurate, has integrity of data. But we are working with them, and we've learned recently that it does offer that capability. So we're working with IT to map out what that would look like. So we should have an org chart soon and available, I would say, within at least the next quarter.
Okay.
An actual org chart.
This is
It
close.
ties to
Very
the
close.
system.
Yeah,
Yes.
this,
Very close.
this is component almost of your
Of what you're looking
organizational
for.
structure. Yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
wonderful. That's great.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions?
Chair.
Thank you, Mom. Is Ms. Bell available?
She is actually an official third training,
Okay.
but I'm happy to speak on
Yeah.
her behalf if I could answer any questions that.
Anybody's looked at the reports for the, there's no questions, well, reports stand as is. I do have and I don't know if you can answer this, Molly. On page 33, she's got this schedule. It's got some 9-month, some monetary amounts listed there.
It's a
You don't know what these, there's no heading, so I'm not sure what she's trying to show us here.
the accident report, the incident report, yeah.
Yeah, but see these dollar amounts?
Yes, it doesn't reflect what they're for.
It doesn't reflect.
Okay, and that's on page,
Page 33.
okay, page 33. I will make sure that we correct that and provide more.
Yeah,
on that.
whatever,
Okay.
it's trying to show us something.
Yes.
Just what she's trying to show us.
Okay,
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any questions on reports from the safety department? Being none, we'll let them stand as they are. Now we move on to community development, which is Ms. Vickers, how are you?
Report for June. Our business license, there were 262 total issued. Of that number, 196 were renewals, so that's a big bulk of that number. Invoice fees were $10,627 for the month of June. Our building permits, 147 total permits issued. 29 of those were residential new construction. 5 were commercial new construction. Again, some of those are duplicates for the same business based on the type of actual permit that was issued, plumbing, mechanical, and electrical. There is more detailed permit issuance summary attached with the dollar amounts, showing the grand total of $32,000 for the month of June. And following that is the newspaper article that was published in June, which I've gone over for the 4 businesses there. HGO, a new hair salon location, the museum expansion, and Jersey Mike's. And also, we are working on implementing our new software, have a meeting going as we speak on that, so we're making progress. We have to meet our goal on that. I see other questions.
The 29 new residential construction. Pre-approach the expiration of the $1 permitting fee. For these are after, so we got 29 new residential
And
homes.
keep in mind that some of those are duplicates, so we're issuing plumbing, mechanical, and electrical out of that number, so that doesn't mean there were 29 new houses. So
It's not 2030, it
it
is,
is not necessarily 29 new houses.
okay.
That could be, it could be, I probably have more detail if you want to know the
I'm
specifics.
just curious, so we can,
but,
the activity of two.
that is the plumbing, mechanical, and electrical, so it could be,
Okay,
one house could take 3 permits.
right, gotcha, okay. Anyone else have any questions?
If that's something you're interested in knowing every month, I can.
Well, I just think it's a curious number to know because we talk about the need for housing in this community.
Yeah.
And if we knew what new, just absolutely new housing permits were pulled, to give us a gauge of the activity in the community.
Oh.
But thank you. Questions, comments? Stand as is. Thank you.
Making some good progress.
Now we're going to hear from the Madam Clerk and her deputy.
She is.
Yeah.
On the days she has meetings.
You have our report. If you have any questions, we did meet with Judge Sussky yesterday. He is on board with us to use the Next Request IFRA software. So we are in the process of getting him transitioned to use Next Request. And so, stand for questions.
Anyone have any questions?
IFRS software?
Yes, we have Next Request in the portal for our IFRA requests.
Okay.
And PD is on board with it, and of course, our office. We had offered it to the Sesame office, and they weren't interested. We did speak to him yesterday, and we did to use that software to fulfill their.
Helps you funnel it to the subject matter experts,
Yes.
and then you can correspond better. Yeah, okay, got it. Thank you.
Any further questions or statements, comments? Thank you, Mr. Madam Clerk. Next item on the agenda is a resolution. Adopting a resolution for removal of demolishing 3 dilapidated structures.
Here, maintenance of dilapidated properties. First one is 401 West McGaffey. I'm sure up the corner of this one pretty well. Town Plaza Apartments.
Standing at my kitchen sink,
See it.
I can see it.
They did, we are just renewing this one, just bringing it up to date. Last time we, it was back in 2019.
Yeah.
We just want to keep it up to date. They did go and pull a permit, a demo, well, not a demo, but a permit to clean out the apartment. They're not gonna take down any asbestos or anything. It's gonna clean them all out, that's it, so. And then bring up plans so they could, start over. So that's what they're gonna do now. The next one is 802 North Beach.
I mean, excuse me,
Yes.
have they not done this before?
No, I didn't.
So when you condemned it in 19
Yes.
and then just went to a standstill, what took place?
I think there was some legal stuff going on.
Those been resolved?
I haven't heard any more, Mr. Chairman, I haven't heard anything else about it. Maybe Josh.
It hasn't been resolved. A lot of the claims have been dismissed, as I'm aware, but I think it's still one outstanding. That's,
Didn't it also change ownership during this?
yes, it's my understanding.
Yeah. So it's a complicated mess. Mr.
Yeah,
Chairman.
but I just wanted an update of where we were at. I think it's already been done once before. So,
Yeah,
Johnson,
and is this in your ward or?
no.
It's in Juan's ward, okay, because I've been approached.
Right.
I've been approached twice because they want to start a petition about tearing it down or something, and,
There was
okay,
talk about tearing it down when we first condemned it.
yeah.
But the number is like outrageous.
Okay.
Back in 19, when we did it, they were gonna run them close to $1 million.
Yeah, I've heard
Back
that.
then. So now it's probably way up there.
Yeah,
Half of it was gonna be the abatement alone of the.
you got it fast because those are old.
Yes.
So as a counselor, what would be our best response when we talk to, I mean, what has been your best response?
The main contact is.
Oh,
It's in the works.
And then tell them not my district. Our district splits at sunset.
I told him it was in Marujos, but I'm sorry, but it's, sorry.
You can continue. Yeah, you keep on your buddy. Just keep on answering.
It's just a step to get this problem resolved.
Well,
That's what the
We've got
question again.
plenty of developers call and acquire the property, but once they go and see it, they back out, right?
Right, it's almost, I don't know how you repair.
And you're gonna have to start over.
Tear it down
It's
completely.
got asbestos and mold issues both that I'm aware of. And that causes the cost of demolition to go through the roof. Because you gotta go in and clean the asbestos and mold out, and start demolition. And this looks like a best step to take right now. Because quite frankly, Mr. Chairman, we haven't got the money in the budget to tackle this kind of subject. Oh, look who arrived late.
Throwing me in the corner.
Go ahead, Carlos. Yes, sir.
I was telling him there's a chin.
Any further questions about this property?
Do you want to say something?
Mr. Chairman, I would just say it's a step. I wouldn't say it was a step to resolve it. It is some movement. At least they're considering, they're looking at maybe some options to resolve this issue and move it forward.
So I believe it's on the market again. Someone sent me a screenshot from Facebook today, a posting, which I have not looked at yet, but showing it on the market for 1.8 million. So like we said, it has gone back and forth. People go in and look at it and realize what it's gonna take, and we start all over again. So
It's a
I
liability.
don't want you to have your expectations up because I think it is still trying to be sold again.
Well, the last time that we went through this situation, when they changed ownership, they were very adamant that they were gonna come in and do all these great things to the building and so forth and so on, and obviously it hasn't. So I don't know what the take is as far as how long do we let it go on? And then, because if we demolish it, we're gonna lose a lot of money.
Right. At one point in time, they had a fence around that.
Yeah.
Taking the fence down now. So it's a health hazard being open like it is.
Because if I remember correctly, the owner, I think the one that bought it was from Alto.
Yeah.
And he came in, or he didn't came in, but he communicated that he was interested in, doing these great things to that building and so forth and so on. And he started, and that's about it.
So if we do someday perform demolition on this, do we acquire ownership of it? And no, we put a lien on it?
Just the lien on the property, yes, sir.
And then ultimately, would we get our money back, I guess? Would be
Right. Probably not. Right.
If you get your money back, but you won't be able to close on
You're probably looking
now
at
we transfer title then to
And there could be a first lien.
Yeah, well, it's a corner property and it could be valuable. I don't know, there's a lot of complaints coming.
Pardon?
It's a good sized lot too.
Yeah.
It is.
There used to be the premier apartment complex in Roswell.
The
Okay.
liability side is
Pretty huge liability.
demo.
You're probably
Thank
looking
you,
at about $1
Chairman.
million demo.
They just tell me
At
when they
least.
get me a TA cat and start driving. Sunset,
You don't want to eat.
Don't tell anybody.
all day in the middle of the night.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead, Toby, please.
So the next one is 802 North Beach. This property has been vacant for a very long time. And it did suffer a fire. You can't tell there, but the door is wide open. I just really passed by there about an hour ago and went down to the alley. The whole thing is completely burned. This is gonna be if we do knock one down, this could be one of them. But this one is gonna be bad. it being open to the public like that and the kids walking back and forth down that street, it's dangerous. And then, the last one is 806 North Beach, which is 2 houses next to this one. This one also did burn. They have secured it. The code enforcement officer got a hold of the property owner and he sent her a letter for the cleanup. You can see the cleanup, it's now way worse than that when I passed by there this afternoon. So, he did file a complaint in municipal court against her for the cleanup, and I think she goes for a sentencing hearing on the 8th of August. She has gone in already and said that she's gonna have it clean by then, so if she doesn't, then there's gonna be some fines or jail time.
And we use that approach on that Town Plaza property. Of course, it's an LLC, you can't jail on it, put an LLC in jail. But just a question. We haven't done that.
We've never done that, not if it's an LLC.
Be something to consider.
These
So-
3 properties were sent to the Public Safety Committee meeting, and it passed 5-0.
So, Mr. Chairman, for my,
Please.
both these beach addresses, they're, what we're doing is going to demolition on them? Or is that the next step?
This is just an option that we'll have if we take past the city council. It doesn't mean that we're gonna demo, but it just gives us that option.
How many demolitions have we done?
Probably about 3.
And how many do you think we have on the demo list?
I have a list that,
Pages.
yeah, I have a list
100,
that I've been working on.
200
Now, a little more.
that we have on the demo list and we haven't done anything.
Well, let me tell you why, I think. So, have you had sufficient budget to go through and start doing these demos?
I don't see it ever was requested in the budget, Counselor.
Well, I'm getting that.
Okay.
If he says, not that I've seen, then I say, well, you daggum sure better put it on your request and we'll see if we can find some money.
Yeah, we've
I
never,
can tell you it hasn't been sufficient, Mr. Chair. It
Well-
was sufficient.
let me readdress that statement. If you put it on the budget request, that may be sufficient to get some stuff done. If it gets, that budget gets approved by council.
Yeah,
Yes.
And I think what you're suggesting, don't get me wrong, but put something in there and we'll look at the budget so we can start looking at the demolition. Because that's a perfect example. You said that thing just got burned. And so we're creating more of a health hazard. We're creating additional work for our fire department. And if we would try to come up with some kind of line item in the budget for demolition, take a look and see about funding those things. And don't just assume that we
no,
don't have the money.
We have requested money for demolition, just to
I
be,
didn't see it in this year's budget.
we didn't get it, and it's been something we've been working on right now. There was like $300,000 that we did not get. So right now, today, we have $0 for it. But it's something we're working
Were
through.
you aware of that $300,000 request from the finance committee?
there, I have not seen it. But that doesn't mean it wasn't requested during the budget cycle that we didn't see, Mr.
Yeah, I don't
Chairman.
recall seeing that. Councilor Arnold?
Since January.
So I'm going to actually direct this as more of a statement / question. So if I'm not assuming anything, I'm just not sure how to present. On that list, let me start here. So with the affordable housing group, I'm not sure if you guys are aware of Geneva Martinez, who has started the rehab to rentals. Okay, that's a program that is currently working with members of the city to get contractors together and list. It's probably a good way to sit down. I don't know if you already have, that's why I didn't want to be assuming, but we could actually knock out a lot of this list and the expense that we as a city might incur, because there's about $575,000 that was granted to her nonprofit organization to take homes in this in this state and rehab them for rental for HUD. So that's something maybe we need to super connect with those groups that are doing that and start tagging away at that list, ones that are available, I think that's a really good way to save
Yes,
some money.
Martinez has been in the office and she does that. I did give her the current one.
Okay.
Yeah, the current one.
But have we sat down and met with her and had, because I'm sure she's just one person and she's working with Dan Jennings. And so, I mean, to actually effectively get this moving and anyway, I will actually add it as a agenda item for the next affordable housing meeting, and we can maybe sit down and do a further conversation with her and Dan and other people to see about proactive measures to get it effectively moving, because she's going to need support.
Yeah, I mean, if they can go down that list, pick up some of these homes and contact those homeowners and see if they're interested in participating in that program, then that would get two things done, which is beneficial. So, and I understand she's one person, but as you drive around this community and you see these homes, it's terrible, absolutely terrible. And what can be done to either rehab or get them torn down or get on a program to tear these things down. So that's where I think, I believe this council needs to go down along that path. What are you going to do? Just let them sit? Kick the can down the road?
Mr. Chairman.
I'm not in favor of kicking the can down the road. Counselor.
I'm sorry, yes.
Well, and I think that's an excellent idea, and look at the investment that we put into tearing it down. I mean, here we are looking at to borrow 300,000, and that's only going to tear down a portion of them.
Yeah.
And if we were to just take half of the budget that we're going to use to tear that down and use it toward a promotional fee or something to help, I mean, partnership with this housing thing, because these are actually affordable houses once they're somewhat fixed up. I mean, they're not value to some of us, but they're major value to somebody somewhere. And I think here's the ugly side of this. Once we tear this house down, now we got an empty lot there, then no investor will ever come back and rebuild there again. I mean, the chances are slim to none because of its location. So where I'm going with that, to minimize these vacant lots that I'm starting to see all over town with a gross display of weeds growing out of them.
Mm-hmm.
Every one I've seen that's tore down right now is full of weeds. And thank God I do see the city guys shooting the sprayers up there to get them. But I mean, I think it's a beneficial to all of us if we look at possibly, instead of tearing down these homes, knee-jerking them, because, look, it's an eyesore, but partnership with the housing community in some way or another. And I'm not, minimize our investment in tearing it down and even half of it and put it toward maybe and incentivize somebody that say, hey, you want to buy this? Well, we'll pitch in. If it costs us 10 grand to throw in 5,000, I don't know, but something in that realm of a direction, I think is probably sounds outlandish, but seeing these empty lots, which I'm starting to see a lot of, I don't know.
Sound like Harold, Counselor Johnson just volunteered to head up that program.
I agree with you, because you can drive around any neighborhood, most neighborhoods, and you're going to see empty lots. And we don't have an infill project to go back and encourage development to go back and rebuild in those areas. But I agree that this could be something that we could look at. We've got to be careful of the anti-donation clause. Let's get into that. But I know that Geneva has got this fund available, but again, she's only one person. And then about $3 million according to KRQE News.
I'm actually disappointed.
That's it. And that's the other thing that's coming out. The Mexico Housing Authority just announced they got a huge sum of monies that they're going to allot. How much is going to come our way, we don't know. Albuquerque will probably swallow it all up, but hopefully there'll be something coming back. But I think it's going to take some more thought in how to make this thing work. And some of these that are really bad, we need a budget and to identify what's it going to cost to tear some of these that are just beyond rehab and get them torn down. So that's where I'm at.
So just real quick, yeah, so that's kind of what caught my eyes about 2 years ago, going through Ward 1 and seeing how many of the dots actually existed in Ward 1. There's a ton of them of empty lots. And the issue is that their program was very beneficial at getting rid of the property, but there was no actual infill. And it may have been, it's in the master plan, as I understand it, implementation of anything from the city side, super connecting to community groups that are actually trying to do something. It's a lot of work. But you pretty much said everything I was thinking, in the sense, please don't knock them down. If we can actually Toby, if you have the ability, because you're the one that's going to see these and know, okay, this one, hey, send out some type of notice or something. I'm not sure how that would look. But let us know when there's actually a property that can be, because you have the problem of these people not even being in our community and connecting with them or even getting them to sell. So that's why I want to see the list, because putting them into different categories, definitely tear down, see what we can do, and definitely rehab. Start working that list, because I recognize where you're at, but I think that there could be a small team put together to work on infill, to work on tear down, and to work on all of that, and just taking a more proactive approach, because the empty lots are growing and the houses are even getting more dilapidated. And if you have one that we can save, the sooner we get on it, the easier it is to save it. That's just my thought of 2 years of looking at this.
I think if we could just do one to show progress, it may create more activity.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's all you need. One success will create additional success. So if we can give it Geneva, or somebody give it Geneva to give it Toby, find out one of those houses that would qualify for that wouldn't take a tremendous sum, whatever it would be, get with the homeowner and let's get going.
Well, just
Get her going.
consider it set up.
Yeah.
I'll do it.
Yeah.
We did discuss it one time, Mr. Chair, about the properties. How would we acquire a property though if the person's dead?
Well,
But we never get any correspondence from people that are out of town. We never get. That's why, so we gotta put these houses on. When we tear them down, we gotta clean the properties. It's, gotta go on resolution to get the weeds cut. It's
Right.
like, it was discussed before. It's like, how do we get these houses?
Mr. Chair, there are some legal issues. Of course, you mentioned one of them being anti-donation and who owns the property. So my first question would be the condemnation list, where that has been legally transferred to the city. And at that point, you're looking at, you have to have an updated appraisal, which would be a cost to the city, but I think you could identify off of a potential condemnation list.
There's a legal risk.
Mr. Chairman, let me just say, so on the property that is west of Nancy Lopez Elementary, that the city condemned 2018, what year was that one that you guys did that?
219, I think.
2019. The city spent all the money cleaning it up. Mike might have some more information on it, but never could find who owned that land.
The owner was
The owner's deceased.
The owner's deceased, they're back in arrears on their property taxes and everything. And so we pushed pretty hard for our county treasurer to get that on the sale with the state. So really, when it comes right down to that type of situation, we have a lien on it, but then they need to sell the property on the courthouse steps. And then at that point in time, I think that, I don't know what we received back on the work that we did to clean up that property, but that's about the only way we can.
And I could be wrong. I hate to misspeak, but that may be one of the properties that we actually purchased at the tax sale, because the investment that we'd already placed into the property, hoping that eventually we could recoup some of that and sell it. So that may be, you may remember better than myself, that may be one of the properties that we actually did acquire at the tax sale. So just because they go on the condemnation list doesn't make them our properties. What it does, we demo it or mow the weeds, we place a lien on that property, we tear it down, now we're mowing weeds every year.
Yeah.
Lien after lien after lien on these properties.
Continuing maintenance.
So you
Try to get them on the tax sale. Pardon me?
You feel like that's property?
And maybe, I don't want to
I can't
misspeak, but
remember.
I want to say that may be one of the ones that, at least we were bidding on it. I don't know if we got it or not. Todd Forsiglio would know for sure.
But that's the key, is the list, the city.
Yeah,
That's
that's
really
city-owned
the
property.
crux of
Yeah.
it, to get the ball.
And Chairman, it seems like the most common thing in all this is somebody is deceased. And then it just, it just starts, I mean, the home I grew up in, the guy got sick, passed away. And the same thing happened to it and it got tore down. And so it's like a pattern. The person dies, there's nobody to get a hold of. And we just like wait in the shadows until, and look, people walk by it and after a while they figure it out. Hey, we can get in there. We have, if we can be a little more, I don't know, proactive in an aggressive way before we let this get to these kind of, I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying that it seems like there's a common factor. Somebody passed away and there's nobody there to pick up and take over.
Well, the situations like you're talking about, you have squatters that end up going into those houses.
Yeah, exactly.
And
That's
then
what's first.
when they get the houses, when they look like that. And then, but that's because there's no property owners anymore. And even if there are property owners, getting them out is very difficult at that stage also.
And or they don't have a mortgage on them, so you don't have a bank involved.
The situation from a legal perspective, what I used to run into when I was a judge on landlord tenants. Mr. Smith passes away and there's no probate, so the kids go clean it up and decide to start renting it. And then somebody doesn't pay them and they show up in court wanting them evicted. They have no legal standing because it wasn't probated. And the same thing happens when you're the last Mohegan standing and you die and there's nobody to even go through the full. It's a real simple procedure. People need to understand how easy probate, unless it's questioned by somebody else. Just go to the probate judge down at the county clerk's office, file the appropriate paperwork, issue notice in the paper, and if nobody questions it, then it's a done deal.
Well, I just say it's something we need to be working with.
Well, it's a complicated issue, and anybody who wants to take this one on, bless you. Carol?
I would say that I already am. Hess actually about a year ago started talking about that there is a legal remedy. I can't remember it because it was a year ago. But there is a legal remedy to actually do that. And that was the whole concept of requesting an additional attorney because the work that comes with it is not something that he himself could just take on with all the other stuff. But there is a legal process for actually getting those homes to where we can actually then sell them out to contractors, but there's a process for it. Yeah. And I got a yes back behind you. So yes, yeah. There is a process. Well, and I think the biggest thing is actually just getting us all connected and creating a system and a mechanism for that process to be consistent in providing.
With a goal.
Yeah. Right, absolutely. Because providing, even though we don't want to invest in another employee, it's actually cheaper than doing some of the demo. So that's why we may need to look at someone who's specific, or even Todd, working with Todd and just getting everybody in a room at a table, brainstorming and figuring out a mechanism and a system for getting these right where we need them and the proper legal advice. But I actually believe it is something we can tackle once we get it organized. And so I have it on the agenda for the affordable housing and we'll start that mechanism as well.
Thank you. You ready for a motion? Yep, I'm ready for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move we send resolution 24XX to the consent agenda at the next city council meeting for removing, demolishing, tearing down.
There you go.
3 dilapidated structures.
Okay.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Being none, so moved. Next item on the agenda is consider recommending approval for the RFP 24-012 for engineering services for the Roswell Air Center. Ms. Griego.
Good afternoon, Chair and Committee. I'm here today to ask the consider recommending approval for award recommendation for RFP 24-12 engineering services for the Roswell Air Center and authorize the city manager to enter into contract negotiations for a pool of 2 vendors for multi-source award with Armstrong Consultants and Molson Corbin. The city posted RFP 2412 engineering services on May 19, 2024. 4 proposals were received on June 18, 2024. The evaluation committee completed the review and it was their recommendation to award the contract to both Armstrong Consultants and Molson Corbin. This is budgeted under the admin professional service contract for review. So I'm asking for your approval to send it on to council.
Councilor Corn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is this our contract that we have to have in place for services, engineering services in the future?
Yes.
This isn't any specific.
This one will start in October.
Okay.
And it'll be for 1 year. We asked for 1 year.
Okay. So how are the duties going to be split for this?
Any new projects beyond Molson?
Okay.
Armstrong does have quite a few already kind of.
So what you're doing here is allowing Armstrong to finish up whatever projects they're on, and the new ones will come to the new vendor.
And should Molson not have the manpower that's busy, they may tell us that when we look towards the end.
Give us the option.
Okay. Any further questions? If I can get a motion?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chair, if I can get my, I move that we recommend approval of award recommendation RFP 24-012 engineering services for the Roswell Air Center and authorize the city manager to enter into contract negotiations with a pool of 2 vendors for multi-source award with Armstrong Consultants and Molson Corbin to go on consent. Okay.
Motion and a second to approve the award recommendation for RFP 24-012 to be placed on the consent agenda at the next council meeting. Any further discussion, questions, comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same. Being none, so moved. Next item on the agenda is consider recommending EAN Holdings LLC to enter into a 5-year lease agreement at the Roswell Air Center.
Good afternoon, Chair and Committee. This is to consider recommending EAN Holdings, also known as Enterprise Rental Car, to enter into a 5 lease agreement beginning August 1st, 2024, and ending July 31st, 2029, for counter space in building number 1, which is the terminal, consisting of 128 square feet, more or less, and 10 parking spaces on the east side of the terminal. We did a kind of a back and forth negotiation with Enterprise. We were able to bring them up to an 8% commission rate on their sales, consistent with the other 2 rental cars as we've evolved. And the tenant agrees to pay the landlord as the rent sum of $29,028.84 as a minimum rent payable in 12 monthly installments of $2,419.07. And this is where that 8% comes in, or 8% of monthly gross revenue. They have negotiated a fixed rate of an accelerator at 3.5%, which is higher than our 3%, and then standard with our other contracting services fixed accelerators. And we've sent the city attorney for review and bring you to recommend the approval of this.
Any questions? Councilman?
Just one question, just for clarification, the 10 parking spaces, are those for the rental themselves?
Themselves,
And
yes.
that's all that they have?
Yes.
10 rentals?
For this lease, that's all that are leased.
Or for this list, but they've got some additional?
Downtown, their second location.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not very many vehicles, but they do have an offsite location.
Yes.
So, and it's gonna have to be addressed
Yeah.
when we get
Real
to,
soon.
the national air races. You know, they're gonna need a lot more than 10 spaces. So we'll address that, I guess, when we get close to it. Any further questions? I can get a motion. Council, please.
Mr. Chairman, I move forward this lease to the consent agenda at the next city council meeting with EAN Holding LLC to enter a 5-year lease agreement beginning August 1st of this year, ending July 31st, 29.
Second.
So a motion and a second to approve the lease with EAN Holdings be placed on the consent agenda for the next council meeting. All those in favor? Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Being none, so moved. Next item on the agenda is consider and recommend to the city council to authorize and advertise for a public hearing for ordinance 24, amending chapter 26 of the city code to the utility rates. So, you want,
I'm not going to present, but I have a question. What on your little sheet over there?
sure. Let me hand out a sheet that some analysis that I had prepared. There you go.
Irma, could we pull that up?
Have something there. Recall. I had 10 copies of that thing. There you go. You got it covered up. You got it covered up.
Well, sorry about that.
Yeah.
You're in my space.
We want to Councilor Alves. Here now. So, what I performed over the weekend was taking, after receiving numerous phone calls from individuals talking about water rate increase and what's happened, and so I did some analysis looking at the water department budget for 2025. And I laid it down against the actual expenditures coming out of the budget that we all received for 2024. And the water fund sales, and we all approved a rate increase, but guess what? The budget does not reflect the rate increase. It looked like it's just got a normal 5% rate increase. So I went through and I looked and compared their total revenues. Now, the water tank loan, we know what that is because we approved that. That's a one-time and it gets reimbursed down on the bottom side. So you can't really take the total revenue for 24, 25, you gotta take the 8 million out. And then I took their personnel budget, their operating budget, did the same thing. Did their debt service budget, did the comparison on that, debt service on the water meter. And I come out with, they have expenditures over there last year in 24 of 10.6 million. They're saying in 25, they're going to have expenditures of 11 million, 7% increase over the previous year. So then you come down and you look at the capital outlay. And the actual capital outlay for 24 was 1.6 million. The budgeted capital outlay is 8.7 million. And so you take the revenue minus the operating expenses, minus the capital outlay, and you come up with a plus or a minus. Well, under their budget that they prepared, that we all approved for 25, it shows that they're going to have an overage of $1.2 million according to budget. Now, things they didn't put in the budget that we approved are the next two items, a bad debt provision and infrastructure reimbursement of $4 million. So you subtract out of their current budget, and then you've got a shortfall for the year of $3.2 million. That shortfall in relationship to their water fund sales is 25%. So this analysis, real simple and to the point, says that our water rate increase on the average to accomplish the $4 million infrastructure rebuild fund that we said we would put in should have been an average of a 25% increase, give or take. Well, and then, so what I did was I took and said, let's look at the beginning cash balance. Water Department has a beginning carry forward cash balance for, as of July 1 of this year, of $2.8 million. If I take my projected shortfall of 3.2 million, there'd be a negative cash of approximately $400,000. So then I took and went a step further. So let's look at what a rate increase looks like. And I took the average of a household of four, saying they use an average, which came off the rate study. That was off the rate study that we'd all looked at. It's based upon a household of four using 3,000 gallons a month per person for 12. So that equals consumption of 12,000 gallons. It's on the rate study. So I took our old rate that we had prior to our increase. That water bill for 12,000 gallons for the month would have been $40.70. Under the current rate study that we approved, that billing is $57.57. 41% increase. I didn't vote for a 41% increase. Was never told that it would be a 41% increase. So I'm giving you an alternative. And this just takes into effect I did not look at commercial rates, did not look at them. So this is looking at residential and small business. If you take our base rate and increase it, keep it to the rate that we increased it from $19.73 to $27 base rate, which is for your first 3,000 gallons in connection. And then I took the old rate of 233 and increased it by 20%, comes up with a new consumption rate of 280. I didn't tier it like our new rates tiered it, but that comes up with an average rate increase of 28% based on that versus 41%. I think our tiered rate structure is flawed based upon this analysis, because if that's the case, our budget, or just on an average, that 12 million gets increased by 41%. That's more than what we said we were going to do, more than what the expenditure was. I'm not saying I have the answer here. What I am saying is we've got a flawed rate study, in my opinion, and we need to do something about it, or just sit around and do nothing. But I'm not in favor of nothing. I'm in favor of looking at our consumers, the residents of this community, of doing something right and doing it right now. and not sitting around and waiting for 6 months or a year. Because this is it's a bad study. We never had this information. Look at this, in my opinion, maybe to a degree, but I'm not sure that those rates are right. It's all deal. $18 million is what the revenue was going to be. And I did some analysis on that too, and that was too high on that original study. So I think it's time that we take a look at this. I know there's a talked about in here of the, I'll get back to it, where changing the wastewater, but wastewater does not need to be changed. I did the same analysis for wastewater. And the wastewater rate increase is proper based upon the same. And could you go to that page on, yeah, that's the page on wastewater. I went through the same thing. You roll down the very bottom on wastewater. Again, the budget there is not done with the revenue piece. But what I went back and did was put all the expenditures in that we approved, and says the wastewater rate increase should have been on average 50%, which is what we did approve, somewhere in that area. So I'm saying under this formula of looking at this analysis, the wastewater rate increase is probably a valid rate increase, just based upon the anticipated revenue and the anticipated expenditures. So I think in this ordinance that was drafted, there was miscommunication by myself to the city attorney. And I think in here, we said we want to repeal this. I can't go back and read it. You weren't, Appendix A, which is the blue sheet in there. He had gone back and wastewater rates back to go. Said don't do that. Leave them alone. Should stay as they originally were. So we would have to adjust this. Counselor?
Just so I understand correctly, we passed the new rates. And so this one, when we passed the new rates, we got some emails and information requesting why the big increase and so forth. And then there was a question of whether it contained June consumption versus July consumption and so forth. And I think Chad went and made a statement to the effect that we're going to make it right. That and forgive me if I misunderstood, that at least my interpretation was that we needed to start charging the new rates based on July's consumption instead of June's consumption. So there was going to be some kind of adjustment being made.
Mr. Chair, if I may. So, Mr. Orpesa, you're absolutely right on track. Unfortunately, we don't have our finance department here, and we don't have the gentleman that created the water study here with us. I can tell you that our water billing department is part of accounting. It's an accounting and finance function. What I can also tell you is our ordinance was not very specific other than effective July 1. So my interpretation and seeking our legal counsel's advice is that July 1 should be applied to consumption as of July 1, not a split billing statement where, for example, you maybe have somebody that had some June consumption and some July consumption on their bill, their next cycle of bills. That June consumption should not be applied at the new rates. is my opinion and legal counsel's opinion. So we did suspend as a city. And as you said, I did put out communications on Facebook and our website apologizing for the error and relaying that we would correct that error in those split cycle bills to only charge at the new rates as of July 1 consumption.
Okay, so this is not addressing that issue. This is addressing, trying to
Sir, this does not
amend.
address that. This is a totally separate issue in terms of, and I think legitimately, looking at this study, this water rate study that was generated from our water department, and understanding that that is a tiered structure where we didn't have a tiered structure before based on consumption and use within each one of those tiers. And of course, you look at the months of June and July, that's probably our highest consumption in terms of city water usage, and never having as a city implemented a water rates increase before. And so I think you look at that tiered consumption where 2 hottest months of the year consumption goes up, and then comparing it back to the old rate is not a good comparison.
So, and I know this is just for reading, I think it was. How much money are we talking about? Because it seems like this amendment would take away a whatever amount from whatever we approve. So how much money are we talking about that this will decrease the amount of revenues coming into the city based on what we just approved?
So as Chairman Hildenbrand alluded to, we've got some basic utility percentage increase of about 5% has been budgeted for the current year. So the impact of this rates change has not been budgeted as far as I can tell. But as Councilor Hildenbrand's analysis alludes to, when you factor in the debt load and all of those things, we're not covering our costs. We're certainly not covering any anticipated increase for staff and keeping quality people in those departments and recruiting those departments. So that is not in budget in terms of the rates impact. And we really wouldn't know with certainty what that new rate applied would impact the city until we saw it, because it is consumption driven. And the idea being consumption would go down with higher rates.
You know, and I guess where I'm going with this is that when we had the discussion,
Yes, sir.
or at least in my interpretation was that we were telling staff or employees that this was a necessary thing to do because this would create enough money to be able to give staff raises. And now if we go down this road, if we can't tell them, because I think we presented, what was it, 4% increase that we told the union people?
Yes, sir. It was.
And now if we are not bringing in the type of revenue that we anticipated, is the 4% still on the table, or is that going to go down?
The 4% has been approved and it's on the table. It is there.
It's on the table, but I don't think it was put in the budget one.
The rate study impact was not put on the table, with the idea being we don't know what that's going to do to consumption and ultimately revenues coming in because of the tiered structure. With the idea being as the revenues came in, there would be a mid-year adjustment.
So their personnel budget did increase by 13%. I can't tell you.
Pushed up by 4% on the salaries.
So a portion of that has to be salary increase.
Yes.
Is already in the budget.
That is,
But again, my understanding is every department
yes, sir. You're right.
gets a portion for personnel.
Yes, sir.
So the water department gets paid out of water fund,
Enterprise fund.
and so forth and so on.
Yes, sir.
And so, and I'm not sure whether they all get the same amount or they don't get the same amount or however it's worked out. My concern is that if indeed we told them 4% and all of a sudden we're not going to be able to bring in that kind of revenue, I think we're going to have a big issue.
But based on their budget, one, which tells me 4% is going to be there. It will be there because they're taking their personnel cost and increasing it by 13% over the prior year budget, based upon no rate increase in their budget. So those wages are going to be there. At 4% will be there based upon what their budget that we approved
This year.
with this year. And so what I'm saying though, instead of a 45% rate increase, is 20-some% rate increase, 28% on an average. So if you take the 40-some% using the 12,000 gallons average per month for people 4, that's a $5 million increase in revenue. If you stay on the current path.
Mr. Chair, committee members, I think you also have to take into consideration the tiered effect. And again, back to the hottest months, the highest consumption of the year, implementing a tiered system in those months. So if you were at the highest tier, 18,000 gallons, those are where we saw the 100%, 200% increases and a misapplication of the billable rate. So a lot of us water our lawns in the summer and all those things. I know Councilor Arnold had shared some billing statements where we saw some heavy increases with, I think, 35,000 gallons usage, again, and that higher threshold on the tiering system. So I do think, comparatively speaking, those higher tiers saw a higher percentage increase than 41%. So I think that was where a lot of the shock effect was, and legitimately so. But just so we understand, it's those higher tiers of consumption that generated the huge impact that was not necessarily in line with 41%. I think I just wanted to make that clear.
And this is just for residential?
Residential and small businesses, small consumer, the 50,000 gallon break. I didn't look into the commercial. All I looked at was what would it be if we did this? Because that needs to go into a deep rate study.
So the commercial would stay at the tiered system?
Yeah. I don't know what else. Something needs to be done. Now, if somebody else wants
the reason
to dive into this and address it, welcome to the board.
I'm not laughing.
I didn't see anybody do anything on this, and I took it on myself to look, wait a minute, I just want to look at that. I don't care about summer consumption. I don't care about winter consumption. What I care about is the rate study is flawed.
And again, my apologies. The gentleman that prepared the rate study is out. Our treasurer is out. Those are the folks that are the expert on the billing and the rates themselves, but they will be back and will have other discussions about the rate study itself.
Because if this budget stayed the same, projected shortfall that I have at $3.2 million, add the $5 million, if you add their rate increase in there, it'd be over $5 million. Then the water fund is gonna be, including the $4 million, the water fund will now be in excess of almost $5 million. Plus the 4 million. But I just say this thing's flawed and needs to be addressed. See,
So, Chad, I know you guys have had to have had a lot of time to talk about this, figure out where some of these issues are, and figure out how to tweak this to get it to where it needs to be and to solve the issues that Councilor Hildebrand has with this stuff. Have you guys come up with a plan to solve this without being too extreme and by tweaking it enough that we get where we need to be?
It's a great question, Councilor Cavan. I appreciate the question. I'd like to clarify. My job, the city staff job, is not to make our own interpretations or use our opinions. Ours is to follow the ordinance, the law as it is passed. And that is what we are working to do. Again, your treasurer's office oversees the accounting side of this on the way the billings are sent out and applying that rate study and applying the ordinance and the rate study as written. So that's where we're at. We had a rate study. It was approved in ordinance. And again, unfortunately, our treasurer's not here to speak to that. What I can speak to is I've been working directly with our water billing department, which falls under our accounting group and treasurer's office. And they assure me that the correct rates will be applied starting in August, which will capture only July 1st going forward usage and the proper rates as currently put into the ordinance. Now, what Mayor Pro Tem is proposing here is a different set of circumstances, essentially repealing not all of the ordinance, but portions of it as it applies to the rate study. I will tell you this, I've gone through Mayor Pro Tem's study and analysis, and I believe it to be correct and solid to go by. So we do see that we need to cover our debt service. We need to cover our costs to deliver water in this community. Now, I won't get into my opinions on the tiering, other than to say it's not a very good comparison going from essentially a flat rate to a tiered structure during the hottest months of the year and then comparing the two. That is a flawed analysis to compare the two. But I will say that Mayor Pro Tem's analysis is solid in my opinion. I've been working hand in glove with our water department because I want to make sure this gets done right, regardless of whose department that is. I'm quite confident that we will implement the new rate structure, the new tiered rate structure as it is currently in ordinance. But this is a separate issue, and I cannot tweak that, so to speak. To my own, that has to be governing body driven.
Well, and I would say one of my concerns with, I mean, I know part of the rate study had to do with consumption usage. And one thing that I worry about is that we find ourselves in a position like other communities too, where they're putting out bulletins saying you can only water your yards on certain days. And I think that part of this is part of conservation. The folks don't want to be told when they can and can't water their yards. And so we need to make sure we get this right at this departure. But whatever that is, we need to get there and get it done so that when the next bill goes out, people aren't going to be happy. But the fact of the matter is we have to do this so that we can get ourselves in that financial position to take care of the infrastructure for the city of Raleigh.
I totally agree. We pay good money for leadership at overall of our departments, including accounting and billing. And I'm committed to holding billing's hand myself to get this done right. And but water billing has committed to me that we are going to get this right on this August cycle and get this cleaned up from the original error in using June consumption at the new rates. I get that I can confirm.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
My turn? Okay, so I want to go back because I couldn't tell by what's in our packet here exactly what's going on. And the sheet that I had in my packet's cut off. So I didn't know. So it's your testimony or your talking points is that this deals only with residential and small commercial, is that correct?
That's what it needs to be addressed in here, and
Okay,
it doesn't read that, but that's,
I didn't draft it.
yeah.
So, okay, so my question is, where in your presentation do you have the emergency fund that we put in?
Well, it was never in the budget, and
But it hadn't been accounted
it hadn't
for.
been accounted for. No.
Okay,
How much is that number?
I don't know.
Neither do I.
Well, I
And
can,
that's why it's not in there.
and I got it right here. According to one of several of the utility statements proposed, the emergency fund see it listed here. So
There was a total dollar amount, but I don't know what it is. You recall?
I think it was percentage.
No, there's a total dollar
it was like $3 million. Okay, 3 or 4. Okay.
for the emergency fund
Emergency. Okay. So,
and $4 million for.
all right. So, I've done some research. I've done a lot of research on this, as you can see, some of the stuff.
Yeah.
So I want to just clear the air, okay? New Mexico State Law 323-4, and I'm not going to read the whole section to you, just section B. If municipal utility annually transfers an interest and sinking fund for the retirement of outstanding revenues, we've got a bunch, an amount equal to 125% of the interest and sinking fund requirements for that year, any income in excess of this amount may be transferred to the general fund of municipality and expended as the governing body of the municipality directs. When the balance, the interest in the sinking fund is equal to the total amount of interest of sinking fund requirements necessary to return all outstanding revenue bonds, the annual transfer of income to the sinking fund is not required. And we don't have the 125% reserve. Is that anywhere?
If you take your beginning cash balance compared to your debt service, I believe you have it.
In my opinion, no, we don't.
Well, but if you take,
And I'm entitled to my opinion, please.
you can have your opinion, but I'm just looking at the numbers.
I understand. So 323.5, municipal utility duty to maintain and improve. After the qualified electors of a regular special municipal election have approved the acquisition of the municipal utility, that was done a long time ago, the municipality shall maintain the municipal utility in good repair and improve and enlarge the municipal utility to accomplish the objectives and purposes for which it was designed. That's where the city of Roswell for decades has fallen down. Absolutely. I've talked to retired people that's worked in these various departments that are affected by this, and I haven't found one of them that says the city of Roswell has ever done a comprehensive study. Now, I've been involved in rate studies before, hired consultants. They get you on the phone, ask a few questions, and then they run off, and then they send you their rate study with a dollar amount. I can't remember how many public meetings we had on this issue coming up to this point. We had several in this committee. We had several in finance. We had several, huh?
8 months.
8 months. I mean, we've been working on this for 2 years. Okay, so I happened to stumble on the annual report we have to give to the state engineer. And I looked through it. I can't say that I'm an expert by any stretch because I just found this yesterday afternoon and I haven't fully reviewed it. But I have looked at it enough to find these points. So according to the paperwork that we sent, the state engineer, we produced 4,140,246, I think, gallons. And it's probably per million.
Million gallons.
Per million gallons.
Million gallons.
Okay, so we're missing 3 zeros here.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
So, and I don't understand this, one of the things I haven't had a chance to get sorted out. Authorized consumption was 3,019,842 million per million, right? So there's 3 zeros. But this was most troubling to me is the water losses of 1.120400. We got 1 million. We're paying to get that water out of the ground. We're not getting anything for it. And we all know that those leaky tanks out there are consuming a big hunk of it. Nobody can estimate how much water runs out of those tanks, but I've been out there and I've seen them. And you can actually see the water rippling across the foundation from the leak that's coming out of the tank. It's not just a little fissure, and if I remember, it was bigger than the end of this table. So anyway, then you get back here, and this one I found very interesting, was the water loss control planning guide. And we fall in tier 2. For the validity of scoring of 50% or below, the shaded block should have been focus area until better data validity is achieved. Analyze the business process for customer metering and billing functions and water supply operations. Identify data gaps, improve supply metering. Conduct loss assessment investigations on a sample portion of the system. Customer meeting testing, leak survey, unauthorized consumption. We got a lot of people, you go pull their meter out, they just go out there and do a UE around that and keep using the water.
I think a great example is that water tank and the mud hole that's sitting underneath it.
Yep. So the third thing that's identified here under tier 2, begin to assess long-term needs requiring large expenditures, customer meter replacement, water main replacement program, new customer billing system, or an AMI system. I don't know what that means exactly, but so we got a lot of problems, and it's going to cost lots of bucks. You said in your analysis here, if I can find it real quick, we've got the $4+ million loan. Where are we on that? Are we out to bid for that project yet?
Going into Sunday's paper.
Going into Sunday's paper. So we're already, if y'all recall, we've got a grant for a good portion of it. Not as good as we could. Why did we not get a better ratio between grant and loan? Because our rates were too low. At the rate stuff, the ordinance is in place, near as I can tell, we're about mid-range with comparison with the state of New Mexico. Now, you will recall that during the rate study, we looked at the national rate for a household per person is 82 gallons a month. And we used in our rate study 100 gallons. So we already kicked it up a little bit. We're in the desert. That makes sense to me. The other thing I like about the present rate system is you have some control of your destiny. If you can afford up to 6,000 gallons, cut back on the water use in your yard or your swimming pool or whatever you've got to try to get back to that goal. You are in charge of the water side of this thing. You're not in charge of what we're going to charge you for the wastewater. By the way, we got a big note that's going to start pretty soon if we ever get that dewatering facility online. And we're going to have to pay for that. So don't forget that. So we've got our debt service of 125%, which in my opinion, we ain't got it. We just don't have it. It's not there, regardless of how you want to look at it. So, and I agree with Councilman Hildebrand on one thing. Our present budget leaves a lot to be desired. Okay? So I have in front of me the final budget, 23-24. Okay? So I look back here and there's a couple of things, but this isn't finance committee, so I'm going to get into it. But if you look at the 5201, wrong one, excuse me, 5300, it showed available cash balance of $443.33. Okay. That's pretty skinny. So I look at the same line item in the budget that's currently in play. Go down here to 5,300, and it's showing a $4 million estimate available cash balance. Now, I've been inquiring quite a bit since I started working on this a week ago today. About this time is when I went home, rolled up my sleeves. At one time, it's my understanding, I haven't had a chance to go look, and it's archived records, and heaven help us if I can find something that far back. But at one time, it was the recollection of the former city councilor that we had a cash reserve for the water fund of $40 million. Now, is that sufficient in today's area? I don't know. I hope I get down the road far enough with this thing to find out.
It'd be nice.
Yeah. Is it may not be at $40 million, maybe shooting too high, maybe shooting too low. I don't know. We'll have that when we have the money and we can have that discussion. I also got and you all received the email that Robert sent out. And I'm not questioning the math, but I did go through here and many times, I didn't work the percentages, many times in many of our personal bills, or that's probably not a true statement, in the anticipated bill based on your June consumption, if my memory serves me correctly, that the water is an increase, no question, but the solid waste was a bigger dollar number if you look at these bills, just dollar to dollar. Okay, so I found that very interesting when I went through. I also, in my scurrying around trying to find data, I found this document. Let's see, I've got a date here somewhere if I can find it. Yes. Solid waste rate study executive summary, December 23. This is before we voted. Okay, so we were still in flux. At all these public meetings we had, Robert Glenn, he's the author of this thing, was asking for direction, and we made decisions. We gave him the direction that he came for. And then he put it all together, and I don't find in the final ordinance, and I looked at it, where it differed from what our recommendation
Which, yes, not the other question.
I don't care. When you're looking at the ordinance and it's totality, the point I'm trying to make is there's no place in here that we have sufficient, whatever enterprise fund, general fund, whatever else that you got. So we took this, I don't have a fair copy of this versus the final draft. I couldn't find it. I don't know, maybe you never got it. I don't know. And like you say, Robert's not here to find out. So this is what I think about your proposal, Mr. Chairman. I think that if we, I don't think it's as carefully calculated as it could have been, because I think you missed some data points that I pointed out. And this is what I think. I think if we enact this, and then I'll get into the legal arguments because this is legal committee, then we're looking at another rate increase. Because it's not going to cover all the bases. It's just not going to do it. Because inflation is still running rapid. We use lots of material that are subject to inflation on this stuff. And I'm not talking about $5 items. I'm talking about what's a 16-inch valve worth?
$36,000.
There you go. So 9% $3,600 is a lot of money. Excuse me, it's still a lot of money. And so I hope with all the work we did for a 2-year period, some of us been engaged in this for give or take a month or 2 years. In the final analysis, we made, I would like to think, an educated, very educated guess. This is where we need to go. Unfortunately, in government, you have to be patient and see if your numbers come together because we're all, I'm very optimistic we hit it square on the head. My most optimistic side, even at the rate we've got, we may have undershot a little bit. We may have overshot. I don't know. But you got to have, in my opinion, a year of data points so you can get the high summer, the low winter rates, so you have all the data points and come to a conclusion. Now, legal points. This is the American Water Works Association. Okay? Now, I know you all haven't seen this, probably. I went by before we started this rate study and picked up a copy from the water department. And I actually scanned through it. Do I know it? No. You know it a heck of a lot better than I do. But I bet you couldn't pass on it today without studying. And this is the national standard. Okay? This is it. If we get into court, this is where they're going to go. When you do, as Pro Tem has suggested, and start separating your user groups, residential, small commercial versus medium and large commercial, you open yourself up big time for lawsuits. Under our proposal, it's pretty uniform. You consider each rate class. It says in the preamble that's in your book, we'll get back to it. It says, calls for rates to be fair and equitable across all user groups. You can't go in and pick a user group and mess with that without the other groups. You got to look at this. There's no magic about this. It's a lot of hard work and a lot of guesswork. And I appreciate you working up to heat. I wish I'd had it before I walked into before 1 o'clock. And so I could have done a better analysis. I'm at a loss. I think 10 of us voted for this thing. We've made a strong case about why we did it. we've got, let me see if I can find that sheet. We've got some debts that are fixing to incur. We already know we're behind in many of these aspects. But just to recap my memory, I lost that sheet somewhere. We've got the water tank loan that's fixing to come online, hopefully within this fiscal year, but we all know about construction. We've got the dewatering that's going to come online this fiscal year. We hope. We hope you're finally going to get it done. We've got infrastructure problems. Do you have that picture of that sweaty line that you showed me months ago that you can find? Which one was that? That was one where you were looking, you had a picture of an uncovered line and it was just sweaty. Okay. But anyway, I got my witness that, yeah, it happened. Do you recall where that line was? Okay. We already know that we've got 32 miles of pipeline that needs to be replaced. Big bucks. Cost you $750,000 per mile. And guess what? Since we got that figure figured out, rate of inflation's taken hold, so it's going to be more than that. It wouldn't surprise me instead of 750,000 to be 800, 850 when we finally get started. It's too big a project to take on one at a time, the whole thing. Gonna have to go in there and excavate whatever you can afford to do and repair it, and then wait for cash to accumulate to do the next section, whatever that's going to be. You can't just say, oh, we're going to go do this. And then I saw where there's another big water line project, 1.5 miles somewhere. It wasn't this. So I know 2 that are already being discussed, 2 different locations. They're going to have to be replaced or repaired. I'm tired of repairing. It's time to fix stuff. Because we have not done that in the city of Roswell for at least 3 decades. We haven't. We have not done any kind of study, thorough or not, in more than 3 decades. We did the solid waste, and that's one of those deals where they talked on the phone, and then whenever I got into office, they said, here's our report. And, oh, by the way, send me my check for $75,000 or whatever it was. So I understand your concern, Mr. Pro Tem, Mr. Chairman. I too share the concern. I don't want to charge anybody $1 more than I need to charge, period. I don't care, large commercial, residential, and everything in between. Doesn't matter. But I can't make the decision today on something that hadn't even been implemented. And because we're not going to get the money now, even see what it is till August. So we're a month behind. Normal analysis, the way I'd like to do it is fiscal year. We're already a month behind and we haven't collected that, although I paid my $300 water bill. And it saddens me that this has gone unchecked for way too long before any of us even thought about running or being on the city council. And we got to play catch up. I don't like it. It's with a heavy heart that I voted for this thing. I thought it was a very educated guess based on the information we had available. And I think we're in a position where we need to stay with it. Also in the ordinance is a requirement for the city council to periodically look, see where we're at. And that's the time to make these adjustments, because then we're not dealing with air ideas. We'll have some actual hard data that we can start making decisions on. Did we overcharge or charging? Fine, adjust it. We undercharging? Not as exciting as being able to give them a refund or lesser rate, That's for sure. But we've got to address this. State law requires it. We've got some things that we're not meeting right now from state law. I read them to you. Councilman Chapel, you came in late. Let me hand this to you. So you can review it. And we've got obligations. That's the thing. We are not an autonomous body. We are over certain things, but we're not totally autonomous. We have to follow state law. We need to follow court decisions. We've got lots of things that we need to research, and that's what I've done. I've gone back and looked at those. Proof's in his hand. And I get it. I don't like it. I'm not happy about this deal. Because not only did I raise everybody else's rates, I raised mine too. All of us raised our rates. But at least my belief is it's fair and equitable. What the proposal is before us is not fair and equitable to all user groups. I'm through.
Excuse me. So Councilor Corn, I hear you loud and clear what you're saying here. But what I'm saying here, based upon data provided by the Water Department in their budget that I didn't prepare.
That's correct.
And those are factual. Those are not numbers out of the air, as you so-called them. These are not numbers out of the air. These are numbers prepared by the Water Department, which also prepared the rate study. And these numbers here are saying that the rate study rates are too high based upon their information. And let me finish.
I'm not going to say nothing.
So that's why I brought to this body to have dialogue about this, that maybe right now, I'm not saying wastewater, according to your budget, is appropriate. That the rate study increase was correct. Solid waste, probably the same thing. I did the analysis on that too, taking their budgets and what their shortfalls would be. I disagree with you, and you disagree with me, that there is enough funds there based upon their cash balance to be 1.25 times the debt service. Now, whether it's encumbered or not, we don't know. You can't tell. And you can't tell what carry forwards were either. I get it. There's some problems in here. But the main issue is, I look at it as it needs to have some dialogue take place now so that we're charging a fair and equitable rate to the citizens and the users of our water. And I don't believe that's where we're at. And that's what brought this to my attention. Now, would you suggest that someone who used 870 gallons of water last month and had a water billing of $27, which is the new rate, should have a sewer bill of $273?
Based on what?
Based on an actual bill.
Well, which billing?
Based on an actual bill.
No. Did you use the computations that were in the ordinance to come up with that number?
No, the city did.
Well, this is talking about
But I'm just telling you, this is an example. It's got the $27, which is the new rate. So told me the new rate was input. But the sewage bill is $273. I go down the street, 4 houses down. They consume 3,400 gallons of water. Water bill was $28 based upon the new rate. Their sewage bill was $35.
Mr. Chairman.
So there's a problem somewhere.
Mr. Chairman, I agree.
These are actual billings generated by the city utility department.
I understand, but I recognize that was problematic, and so did the city manager.
Well, no, it's not problematic, because how do you get one that's 4 houses down with the correct rate and the one that's 4 houses different is not correct? That's the issue. So I failed to disagree with you by saying that's problematic, because how do you do 4 houses down and you got 10 times the rate with less water consumption?
Yes.
So that brings it to there's a fallacy in this whole thing.
Well, you
And
don't have
Water billing issue. That is a counting water billing.
But the buildings were generated at the same time.
Yes, sir.
There were 4 houses down and the new rates were input.
And that's where I'm at with, we've got to get the billing side
Yeah.
right.
Well-
And that's an accounting function.
Yeah, and that's
Let me ask you a
incorrect. But I'm just bringing this to your attention because I don't think we're charging a fair and equitable rate. And that's what I'm bringing now. Is there fallacy in charging one to the other? I didn't go into that depth. I'm not that individual. But what I am saying is, I think we're charging a fair and equitable rate
for you,
based upon this issue.
you raised the issue, is that wastewater?
Wastewater is not a problem. I think the
No,
wastewater,
those numbers.
those numbers there,
What you said one was correct, the water side. What's the one that was in error?
wastewater's in error. The water's correct.
Okay, so,
Wastewater's incorrect.
okay.
It's a billing issue.
That's a different issue.
Accounting needs to do that. Accounting.
I don't understand. Help me understand how the billing cycle was the same and one had the correct sewage rate and 4 houses down have the incorrect sewage rate.
Well,
Is that not just the input on a master table?
Let
And
me try to
It's a
explain.
water billing issue for sure. It's an accounting issue in the water billing system.
Do they equate the wastewater billing? This is my understanding. They take 3 months average in the wintertime, and then they use that for the rest of the year.
yeah, this is a 1,200 square foot townhome that could not have been using that much water in the winter. And I don't even know if it was occupied a year ago because it's new construction.
Well,
It's new construction.
and
But all I'm saying here is this needs to be relooked at again when we have these kind of things going on. But you guys can do what you want to do. I put the motion out there and you all do what you want to do. I know where I'm at. But Councilor Armour, you have a question?
Yeah. So I actually would like to say thank you for putting that together. It has been my concern all along that something just wasn't right. I also am a firm believer that if you're going to increase rates or tax people additionally, make sure that you've done the homework to ascertain that it's appropriate. That's kind of my concern with the tiered program. I actually can't even remember, because we've been to so many public meetings on this, what the actual purpose of it being tiered, because a lot of people have come to me and said, why are we not all just charged the same rate? Why are we being charged more if we use more? And also at this and this is no actual shot at our billing, but if we can barely get a single number right, how are we going to be effective at adding 5 different numbers and even knowing when we're wrong? That tier thing, and I am completely accountable for kind of assessing this and thinking that it would work out, but I would be even more accountable, or actually I would feel 10 times worse if I just inserted it and didn't just accepted that in the middle of what I consider a recession, we are just smacking people just because we put this out there, and we're just going to have to stick with it, even if it does, hurt people who are already hurting. This proves to me that at least, if not 25%, that at possibly even 30, we could still effectively accomplish the goals. And Mr. Councilman Corn, we all know about all of those projects. We've been hearing about the desperate need that we have to get all of those done for the same amount of time. But we're not going to be able to do them all in 1 year. So for me, proper planning, proper accounting, knowing this is what's coming in, we're hitting this project this year, this project, and knowing what we actually need to fund that. This is just like, let's just go 40%, and if we're over, we're over. And who cares if we actually stole money from people who needed it? find this whole disorganized mess unconscionable. And I do not support this. And I really appreciate you bringing the opportunity before the council to revisit this, have another conversation, because there is no doubt in my mind, we have no choice, no option but to raise rates. But are we doing it right? And I can tell you at this point, I have no faith that we are. So please, thank you for bringing this up. Please give us another opportunity to revisit this and have a conversation. Thank you.
Well, Elder Chapel.
Real quick, this is for City Manager, Mr. Cole. Would what Mr. Hildebrand proposed to be easier on the city staff as far as the administrative action for all of this, implemented everything else, than the other way? Because right now, I think we might become a bottleneck for resourcefulness within the water department and accounting and everything else. Not, again, I'm not throwing shade at anyone. It's just the realization that we're in a very small municipality and we're teetering on, do we need to hire 100 more people, or, so which one would be easier for you to implement and administer? You and Mr. Matthews say yes.
Yes, thank you, Councilor Chapel. I appreciate the question. I would like to throw out that, again, I believe Councilman Hildenbrand's numbers are solid. Councilmember Quorum pointed out that we are missing the emergency repairs. That's an important piece. My recollection was that it was $4 million a year for emergency repairs. I think we need to account for that in anything we do. I think we also, this is just the city manager and me, we need to account for employee retention and keeping our best and attracting our best to those departments. So I would ask that that be a consideration that is missing from this as well. In terms of the applicability, really, this is just a matter of hard coding in the proper rates. And so if I've got a water department that did a water study and they're giving the water billing department the wrong rates from their draft presentation back in January, but really it's an accounting function, and the accounting department should be certifying what's in the actual ordinance that was passed. I need my water billing department to not be confused by the two. And really, I need both of them to come to the table with us and we carry this load together rather than disappearing.
So Pro Tem Hildebrand's proposal would be easier on the city.
It wouldn't matter. As a matter of course, either way, we hard code those rates in, and it really doesn't create workflow beyond hard coding the rates in, the proper rates.
Okay. The only other question I have is for Mr. Eintu, if he's on call.
And I believe he is.
Hey, Hessel?
I'm here.
What do you, from a legality standpoint, what do you think about each proposal?
Say that again?
From a legality standpoint, what do you think about each proposal?
About this proposal? I would like
either one.
With Councilor Hildenbrand, so I haven't been able, I couldn't confirm or deny the sinking fund percentages or how it meets our bond obligations without having finance crunch those numbers. Generally speaking, I think Councilor Corn recited the law correctly. I would disagree on one part. So where it comes to treating different consumers differently, there's kind of a Civil Rights Act component to that, where certain towns in the South were trying to charge Black people more for water historically, and that's not okay. But treating differently situated customers can be okay so long as there's a reasonable, there's reason behind it. The one point of law that I do want to point out is generally the power of a municipal body, and so if you look at 3-18-1, is to establish rates to be reasonable, consistent with amounts received by private enterprise in the operation of similar facilities. So that's sort of a missing piece and usually in New Mexico, There's a couple big cases on point. One's out of Albuquerque, one's out of Silver City, one's out of Grant or Gallup. And the courts seem to allow us to use other municipalities as a proxy because there aren't a whole lot of big private water distributors anymore. But that's something that would have to be considered for full legal sufficiency.
Answer your question.
Good, thank you.
Okay. Councilor Cohen.
Sorry, didn't mean to put you to sleep.
The bills that you were referring to, were they the July bills?
Current billing, yeah.
Okay. So let me ask city manager a question. Mr. Cole, the rates that were implemented for a short period of time,
Yes, sir.
were they the actual rates as outlined in the ordinance or some other rates?
No, sir. My understanding is that those were the rates supplied by Robert Land that came from his January 2024 draft. And those were given to water billing. The problem is what was passed in the ordinance was not used. And that should have come from the accounting office that supervises the water billing.
We got a mess.
Yes, sir. And I'm going to make sure we clean it up. What I'm saying is I need this team to come in and work together on it, even when things get hot. And they're hot right now, but I need the team to step up with me.
Oh, well, I've been approached. I will admit I haven't had many phone calls. But anytime I'm at the grocery store or out shopping, somebody recognizes me, we have a conversation. And so far, without exception, and this is probably a dozen or maybe 2 dozen times, I've explained why we had to do it, including it hadn't been addressed in decades. And these are the bills that we're facing, new bills that we're facing, and that there's some question on our legality of our 125% sinking funds. However you want to account for it, it's a serious question, because that puts us in jeopardy of not meeting. Are any of these funds have bonds? Or are they all loans? Anybody know?
I believe they're all bonds. We have any bonds? Maybe James.
I believe there are bonds. I believe there are
The
bonds.
smart water meters.
What could happen if the bondholders wanted to, and we're paying our debts, we're not in arrears anywhere, is they could come in and they could make a call on that whole whatever's left. And folks, there's no way we can scrape enough money together to get that done. No way, because we're in violation of the contract we have with the bondholders. If we can't easily demonstrate, maybe it needs to be a line item in the budget somewhere. I don't know how it needs to be accounted for. But I'm telling you that our budget that we're presently in has got many problems. We already know of approximately $4 million worth of stuff that we're going to have to find the money for that weren't included. Okay? Nowhere to be found. Not blaming anybody. I'm just saying it's not there. And there's some other little rumors going around that we're not to the bottom of that yet. So based on some rumors and conversations, we may be looking at close to $6 million. And let me remind you that depending on where that funding comes from, we're starting out at an $8.9 million deficit for the general fund items, okay? I think I said, I've gone over this with you before. And then if you look at the totality budgets, including the enterprise funds, we're 7,491, 798 for anybody that's keeping up. I don't know how we're going to get this scrambled. The finance committee is going to have to work many hours to try to sort this out. And I personally, and let me go back to the 23-24 budget. We're headed in the right direction, kind of, sort of. Okay, in the general fund, the 23-24 budget, we were underwater walking in the door at 7 million and some change. The totality was 26,682,624. So that's a lot different than the 7,491,000. So we're making progress. Okay, everybody understand and agree with that? But we cannot step in midstream, or it's very difficult. Can we? We may have to. Figure this, rehash this whole thing. May come to that. I hope not. I pray that's not what we have to do, because there's not enough hours in the day for the committee to have to wade through this stuff. Now, I've got a plan. I've not discussed it with Mr. Cole nor our treasurer on what we need to do in the committee about these big deficits. We can't take care of it in one fell swoop, ladies and gentlemen. Can't be done.
Councilor Quinn, can I just, you're talking about budget here, and I get what you're talking about. But to expedite this meeting, can we hold those conversations in your finance committee concerning the total budget and talk about what the issue at hand is right now? I get where you're going, but we're not going to resolve those issues there until we get to your finance committee.
No,
And
I understand.
And that's where those have got to be resolved, to be sent to council to be resolved. And so I would like to, if we can get back to, let's either thumbs up or thumbs down on this potential resolution and send it to your committee for further discussion. Okay with that, whatever you want to do, but I wanted to bring to light that I believe that this rate study.
Sounds like you want a motion.
Yeah, so if you want to kill it, that's fine. If you want to send it to finance committee for further discussion.
Mr. Chair,
yes,
if you don't mind. I don't disagree with your numbers whatsoever, Mr. Chair. I'd just be very careful about using the past 4 years' budgetary numbers to see where our fund needs to be. We cannot continue operating at that level. We've been on a flat budget since 20.
Mm-hmm.
We've been running flat. And just last year, just for instance, we budgeted $1 million as an original engineer's estimate. 36-inch water line from 19th to Stone Street, which is 3/4 of a mile. They got actual numbers later on when we were ready to run the project. It came in at $3.9 million. So that $1 million that we had budgeted was a carryover from last year because we weren't able to complete the project. That's $3.9 million just for 36. That's not any other infrastructure repair whatsoever. No replacement, no upgrade of our 4-inch water lines that don't meet the fire protection standards. No asbestos repair, no other large diameter repair, much less the maintenance. I mean, we're barely crawling along and band-aiding this system back together. We're barely keeping it put together. And our guys are overworked right now, severely. We're having those discussions right now. We have HR involved. We have nights and we're having these big discussions because our guys are out 24 hours a day. And that is not safe for our employees.
No.
So we're opening up bigger discussions because we have to hire more personnel, which of course needs more budget, more revenue. These are a lot bigger discussions that need to be had when I have no problem with you guys revisiting the rate structure whatsoever. But I think all this needs to be considered whenever we start talking budgetary numbers, because these numbers are not true numbers. We cannot continue to operate with those. I mean, it's just not good numbers to run off of, because we weren't able to even complete our project. That's why there was carryover. And we've been running flat budgets for years.
I don't disagree with you, Lorenzo. I appreciate what you do with the water department, with all those employees and the stress, right? What I'm saying here is those were the numbers that were presented to council. If there weren't the correct budget numbers, that should have been spoken about. And it wasn't. And so we passed a budget that you're saying is not acceptable.
Well,
It's not acceptable.
Mr. Chair, this.
What you're saying, and I'm not disagreeing with
Right,
you.
right. No,
We should be passing budgets that are realistic. And so we can address these issues. But if I take what was presented by the water department in their budget, then they should have been telling us, you're telling me this is not true.
It is incorrect because this year we.
Then why did the water department send us a budget that was not correct?
Mr. Chair, this year, it was discussed that we're going to sit out and not run any major projects to build a fund this year with this rate increase.
Right.
To have the reserve fund to start paying cash for all these projects, so we wouldn't have to go after loans.
Correct.
That was.
And that's what part of this has built into it. But what I'm hearing is that the budget isn't even close to being correct.
Mr. Chair, if I could chime in on that.
That's what I'm hearing you say.
So,
I'm not disagreeing with you. I want, I think we all want, what's real.
We put
No,
a-
it's not real.
Even-
And guess what I'm hearing is, this is not real.
According to our ordinance that we passed with our rate study and everything else, there was supposed to be in our operating budget an 8.3% increase on top of the regular operating budget, and it still ran a flat budget again.
we don't know what this revenue will look like. We've never applied a rate study, a tiered rate study, moving off a flat rate before. And so the idea being you implement the rates and you see, because it can be controlled through consumption. You can reduce your consumption and that would lower the revenues coming in. So we don't know what that's going to look like. And we were going to get to mid-year, see what the revenue trend was, year one of implementation, and request a budget adjustment. So that is true. We don't know what this is going to reflect in the budget truly on the revenue side.
Because the budget you showed, that was given and approved, was an 8% increase over the previous year, with a 5% increase in revenues. If that's not true, then what we need to be, you need to be telling us what is real. And what do we need to be approving? Because when the budget's not correct on the spending side, I can't believe the revenue side is correct. And so that's why I'm saying this is flawed.
So, Mr. Chair, did I hear you say, make a motion?
Yeah.
To send it to, I didn't quite hear what the motion was. I just go to finance.
It needs to go to finance no matter, either you kill it or send it to finance. And then for further discussion and try to get this thing worked out, maybe these tables correct. This was just me doing this by myself and without city staff involved.
So your motion is to send it to finance and you need a second.
That's what I'm looking for someone to make that motion, to send this on to finance in a different format and look at this thing even further. Not to interrupt.
No, you're fine, Mr. Chair.
You know,
Believe me, I can.
and believe me, we want to get this right.
And I'm with you.
And what I'm hearing is, it's not right. And we need, and as you said there, Councilor Corn, we need to get it right. And it's not right. So do you want to take it to your committee and get it right?
Depends on what the committee says. They send it to me, we'll hear it. I don't think, and we meet next week.
Next week.
So the argument's not gonna change next week. So, because we're not gonna have time to gather arguably better information. At least I don't know how to do it. I think between your calculations, and you need to understand, I don't disagree with your calculations that you have. But what I do question is that you've left some stuff out.
Well, and let's see what it looks like.
Well,
Where's that? I'm sorry.
and we need real data before we start making these kind of decisions. We need to look at it at 6 months, which by the way, should have been in January. Now it's going to be February, March timeframe.
course, it's gonna really be February anyway, but March timeframes, because we didn't get the billing out. If I remember the ordinance correctly, I haven't reviewed it lately. It said 6 months.
You can adjust yourself based upon 5 months actual and plug back. I mean, I've been doing that stuff my whole life.
I understand.
Did that my whole life,
Well,
taking
I don't
modeling
think
and
that- I don't think
financial
that's-
projections, and you can do that with this here.
I don't think that's what the ordinance said, but I could be wrong.
I don't think the ordinance said,
I think it said mid-year and end-year.
I don't know. Anyway, listen, do you want?
So if we send this to committee, it just goes to finance, and we have a different group of counselors look at it, poke holes in it, refine it, whatever we need to. If it needs to get set back to legal, it just gets set back to legal.
It could advance right out of there.
Or it could advance, I'm sorry, it could advance right out of there, but if there's any serious change that need to be done, just be set back, correct?
Right.
Depends on if it's financial. If it's financial, we shouldn't kick it back. We should find out the information. If it's of legal, and my biggest fear about this is exposing ourselves to lawsuits based on, and I haven't had a chance to talk to our learned attorney. He and I have lots of discussions in his office, and we disagree, and it's amazing. I come in the door and we disagree, and after talking about it, then we're getting real close to an agreement. And I mean, I'm not an attorney. I spent 15 years on the bench. I used to read all those judicial decisions. I know how to research it, obviously. I know how to come up with the numbers for that applicable law. But I thought when we came in here, I did some calculations based on just changing the residential rate. And it was a net loss of 2 million plus. I don't remember the number exactly. And because he changed, because lack of my understanding, to include small commercial. Well, so guess what?
Right, but that could all be added in during your committee. I'm just asking if this is legally sufficient. Because all that can be added, it can be crossed, because I think we're blurring two committees right now.
I'm not prepared to answer that. It may be legally sufficient, but it's not an issue that I would wish on any attorney to go argue.
I don't either. I'm just saying, if we advance, we get five more counselors or more. If everyone wants to show up, we get more.
Three additional. That's all you get, because he and I are on both this committee.
Okay, so we get more eyes on it. I'll make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to send to finance them.
And that would be a second.
I have a motion for.
There needs to be a second.
You got
I thought Councilor Hildebrand made a motion.
I said I was asking for the motion.
Oh, okay.
I was asking for the motion.
Sorry.
At least we could continue to look at it.
So
You made the motion, correct?
I did.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, now we're waiting for a second.
I thought you just
He made
seconded
the
it.
second.
Well, not particularly, because what I'm hearing in this conversation, you're gonna end up not taking action at the finance committee because you don't have the numbers, the data. So I'm not sure that if it goes to finance, it's really gonna matter,
Not gonna matter because they're not gonna have.
because you're gonna end up having the same conversation that you have right here.
Got less than a week. Well, it's a week today, 2 o'clock. And that's not enough time to gather the information. I know Janie's on vacation. I don't think she comes back till Tuesday. So we're gonna, that component is out right now. Don't know what the status is on Mr. Glenn. Renzo, I guess, could pick up the ball. But it's gonna be hard to get anywhere.
So if you want to postpone this till next legal, that's fine. My major thing was to get some dialogue and look at this thing.
Everyone has eyes on it. I'll retract my motion. Everyone has eyes on it. We can look at it again after finance gets their eyes on it. I don't mind. Just, yeah.
So postpone?
Yeah, fine. So that's okay with everyone else. It's not my choice.
My question would be, if we're not gonna take action on this one, we already passed the rate, the new rates.
Yep.
And they get implemented
They're in.
on August the 1st.
Billing cycle.
July 1st.
July 1st, but it'll go out in the August.
It'll be in the August billing.
Yes,
It will be July consumption.
yes, sir.
And that'll be the correct billing, because right now you're going to make all the corrections this billing, right?
Correct to the ordinance that was passed by the council.
So August will be, that's
Yes.
the correct billing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You're looking at, I think the question you're really asking, if we roll this out and it gets to finance, and if it gets to city council, you're looking at 60 days minimum. New bills are going to go out starting the first of the month. So you're going to have a quarter of the old billing system, and then you're going to come in and readjust the rates accordingly.
And that's where I was going, that people are going to say, well, you just changed it effective July. And now you're coming back and telling us, oh, sorry, we made a mistake.
We're telling them right now.
We've made a bunch of mistakes. It's disgusting.
We're telling them right now we made a mistake.
Yeah. I don't know, but personally, I think that we should look at this mid-year and determine whether we need to go forward with it or we need to rescind it. Because I hear Lorenzo, the concern.
Yeah.
So that you don't have enough money in the budget to be able to address all the pipes and whatever else they need.
But no financial projections either. I don't even know what they need, or even if this, what we've got is going to cover. Because I got no data as what's needed and no data on what this is actually going to accomplish. Are we even, but do we need to increase the rate more to cover what they're talking about? But because of the tiered system and the application, this is like complete chaos because we can't get grounded. I can't get enough information even from the get-go because I can't get it from the source. So even if you do a 4-month or 5-month study, until they actually submit something, so this is a plan. This year we're going to hit this. This year we're going to hit that. This is what we need for that. This is how much this tiered system is going to bring in. I got nothing. Nothing.
I think you got it.
Well, okay, we're all in agreement that we have a flawed system right now, correct?
Yes.
But we're also in agreement that what we voted for and did pass will be implemented. Am I correct there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. That's all I wanted to know.
Council.
Let me ask Lorenzo a question. Could you have sufficient time to put a realistic budget together to bring, not this next meeting, okay, not the August meeting, in September, so we can get the other half of this equation? You've always got two parts of the equation in a budget. You got your revenue and you got your expenses. And you're right. We don't have a very clear picture on the expenditure side.
Nope.
And I would like to say, we're going to make a decision on the expenditure side in September. I don't know. It's going to be just as cloudy as this. I need some time to reassess and make some better. If we get this rate increase, we'll have hard numbers, or at least we'll see a trend. And we'll have a better handle on the actual needed expenditures. Would it be fair to you and your department and your employees to come into finance in September?
It's getting done by then.
Okay, well, listen, we're all overworked, we're all underpaid, but we've got to address all of these issues. And it's not just this issue. This is just one of a myriad of issues that we've got to do. We've got to figure this out. And there's, you got to make a decision. You got to balance this. First thing you got to do is figure out how to balance this budget. Okay? You just got to do it that way. Then you can decide what you're going to do with any surplus money, cash balances, and employees, because we are not addressing our employees' concerns adequately. But you can't do B and C until you get A done. And there are so many unknowns. I mean, I've been doing this since 1980. I was blessed with the opportunity to learn, and I didn't waste it. When I was in the legislature, I was on House Appropriations, Taxation and Revenue. I was on the county, I was on the budget committee. Man, I got to tell you, the county budget is so much simpler than this thing. This is one of the most complicated cobwebs, if you will, maybe spider webs is better, of any budget I've dealt with, including the state budget.
Each one of those enterprises is its own standalone budget, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about the water and wastewater enterprise fund. That's just one leg of the stool.
And they're all interconnected.
And then you get into taking Mr. Cole's time, because he's got to sign all the purchase orders. They're down here, and then you start going up the funnel. And our finance people have a big role to play in this thing. I'm not saying that they're the best in the world, but that's what we got to deal with. So I admire you bringing this forward. But my argument is, let's get a chance to get some hard numbers before we make any other decisions on this. Educated guesses is what we made to put that ordinance together. Estimated on some known expenditures, probably not all of them. He says no. And we just got to take a breath. Now, it's unfortunate that this has got to such a boiling point. There's nothing to do with this particular issue. I'm just saying the whole thing is in a boil. And from where I sit on the finance, this is just one part of it. You've got the airport. You've got the solid waste and the landfill. There's another component. And then you've got the general fund budget. And it is extremely hard and complicated to get this done. And I didn't like the way the budget was put together, but that's not my decision. The state law says county manager presents a budget and we vote it up or vote it down. City manager, excuse me. I'm getting old. I can't remember where I am sometimes.
I will just say, in the projection of revenues, having never implemented something like this before, the last thing we want to do is over project revenues and they don't come in because everybody cuts their consumption. And now we got another problem. We got to clean up a budget deficit.
Well, and I
agree with that, but there was no attempt to adjust revenue at all. That's the fallacy. And so either no motion, and this will die right here. And
Next legal.
or make a motion of what you wanted to do, and we'll move forward. So if there's no motion, is there a motion? Being no motion, dies right here.
Okay.
I'm gonna move on to the next item.
Chairman, there is a comment.
According
According to the HR report, finance has 12 personnel, so how can it be so messed up? All accountants, and isn't the manager a finance guy?
I'm not gonna.
And it's just guess.
Interrupt somebody else. We're short accountants in finance. I don't think there's going to be any argument.
Yeah. Let's move on to the agenda, please.
Yes, sir.
And we can have those discussions at any time, but let's get this agenda knocked out. Okay. Disrespectful, but we can have open discussion. Consider the next item on the agenda is consider recommending approval of authorization for the city manager to enter into an agreement with TIPS Purchasing Cooperative by board of participating public entity.
Good afternoon, Chair and Committee. I'm here today to ask you to consider recommending approval and authorization for the city manager to enter into an agreement with TIPS Purchasing Cooperative and by board of participating public entity. The city looks for viable ways to procure goods and services for the city to obtain the best possible values. By entering into an agreement with TIPS and Byboard, it will give the city additional legal avenues to obtain goods and services at prices competitively bid on. These contracts are similar to state contracts and GSA agreements. The city incurs no cost by entering into an agreement with TIPS and Byboard. In pursuant to New Mexico 13-1-135A, any state agency or local public body can join, sponsor, or manage a cooperative procurement agreement for the procurement of any services, construction, or items of tangible personal property with any other state agency, local public body, or external procurement unit as long as the agreement is approved by the governing authority. So I ask for your approval to enter into this.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yes.
Council.
So help me understand what this really is.
So in general terms, I think we're all familiar with what we call CES vendors, or piggybacking off another governmental contract. This essentially is the same type of concept where the city can piggyback off of the build back.
Yeah, so they are,
Tips.
yeah, this can save time and money, the saving costs and procurement of the goods.
Excellent. So, and what this is in specific relation to, Councilor Corn, as we visited about earlier, we are looking at grandstands for a build out in our air center for an air race. The city of Roswell was awarded $3 million funds from our legislature specific to bringing in these air races. We did go out and get 3 quotes from 3 separate vendors. Our problem is, and always has been, because the award was late in receiving this award, is we are running out of time. We've got to negotiate with the FAA, the TSA, and we've got to build some bleachers before we have a race next year. And then trying to shave off 2 months of time in a formal bid process by going with this type of TIPS build by build. Again, we have the 3 vendors, the 3 vendor quotes. Did meet with the Rah group. It was either yesterday or day before yesterday. It's all blur now. What I can tell you is the low bid was 2.8 million from Sturdy Steel. That includes foundation work underneath the proposed bleachers. There was a quoted cost from AK Sales, that's a local vendor, for 3.49 million. Let's call it 3.5. There was a third quote from Southern Bleacher Company, highly experienced in building bleachers, for 3.65 or 3.695. Let's just call that 3.7 million. In speaking with the Rah folks, they felt very comfortable with, and I submit to you, this legal committee, a suggestion going forward to finance that we accept the 2.8 by accepting our procurement officers' TIPS purchasing cooperative by board participating public entity agreement. We would be able to move forward with those, the low bid from the bleacher construction as we get closer to finance, but that's what this is set up to.
Why are we going through this process instead of the normal process using the 3 quotes you have and just doing bleachers?
So it would push us out another 2 months.
I understand.
Yes, sir.
What else can we use this contract for besides these bleachers?
So there's many vendors, it's extensive list of vendors that any department can use. But before we can use the vendors, we do have to be members And so the governing body does have to approve before we can join any cooperative procurement.
Steve, could we get a vendor list, available vendor list? So
Oh, yes. I did ask for 100, but I can. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
And this has got to go to finance, right?
Yes. It will, I mean, this next piece, yeah, this is
The
inside.
actual purchase will go to finance.
Yes.
This is just approving them to use this system.
I'm just covering all the bases I can think of sitting here. There's a couple more I'm sure I'm missing out on, but that's okay. That's my bad, not anybody else's. And I talked to Mr. Cole this morning and he went through it and then more questions came up in my mind. And I'm interested to look at that vendor list. Maybe something that the water park can use, something anybody can use. I mean, those guys use more material, except maybe the streets, dollar amount. Any other department I can immediately come to mind. So that's fine. I just,
And Chairman, if I may, the more agreements you enter into like this, the more strength you have in your procurement section.
yeah, it's like shopping local and then going on Amazon, see you can save 15, 20% in some cases. I get it. I understand.
And the motion?
I would like to recommend approval and authorization for the city manager to enter into agreement with TIPS Purchasing Incorporated and by board as a participant public entity.
On the consent agenda?
Second. Damn, all of a sudden we're piling on again.
You're getting a little sloppy. Have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, being none, so moved.
What else you got for us?
Public participation. Oh, read aloud.
Let me go get it.
I didn't kick her out. Nobody kicked her
Yeah,
out.
you guys want to continue having your conversation? We're having it earlier. Let's get back to this meeting, and get it over with. So just to note, these new cooperative solid waste competitive discounts on equipment such as side loaders and rear loading equipment. We'll cancel the purchase orders we got out there right now. And let's get it cheaper. We might get it cheaper. Thanks for the information. Thank you, Abraham.
Just another toolbox. Thank you.
It's great.
Yeah.
There being no other, adjourn.
Quick announcement.
Oh,
Finance committee is going to be rather lengthy depending on how much conversation we get into. There's 10 items on the agenda. I've not approved the agenda. I'll do that in the morning. Hopefully stuff will be in your box.
Tomorrow afternoon?
No, I'll approve the agenda tomorrow.
it'll be in our box.
Yeah, I hope it's in our boxes. I mean, I got to work out, I don't know how much stuff they've got accumulated, but it's my overall desire, members of the finance committee, to have your stuff in your box Fridays, you got all weekend.
Tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, tomorrow afternoon.
That would be great.
To get it done.
I
I'll get an
digest
email to
slowly
that.
and I would appreciate it.
Okay, because then it
Thank you.
gives you
Good
the
job.
weekend to look at it and then
Great.
Monday to inquire if you wish to.
That would be good.